Hi, everyone. Welcome once again. I am very happy to see you here, as well as my co host. I am Juanita Cero,
I'm Paul Perron.
and this is another episode of the Middle Ground podcast. Okay, so we are here to talk a little bit about the big things, but we're trying to make them light and enjoyable. What
Easy to
are,
understand.
yeah, exactly.
And
What are
from
the
two
big,
different perspectives, two complete different ideas of looking at the world and the universe.
that's correct. What are the big things? Evolution, consciousness, why are we here? Where do we come from? Where do we go? All of these dense topics that in the end, no one knows. No one really knows anything about. And so we're just having a nice conversation and trying to figure out what those topics mean for us.
Yep.
Okay. And so in today's episode, we are going to go over a question that is very important for anyone who wants to start getting to know themselves on a deeper level. And this question is, why are we here?
Dun, dun, dun.
So, Mr. Paul Perrin, tell me, why do you think you are here?
To party. No, I don't know. I don't know. I would define myself as a complete agnostic, pretty much.
What is an agnostic?
I don't know. That is what an agnostic would say or believe, is that they don't know.
Do,
I
do you
I
think that about everything? Like you just don't know? Or.
um I would probably phrase it in a way that anything that is based on anything philosophical or theoretical or that can't be proven with, the scientific method, is there's no way to know. There's no way to know for definite unless we go there and come back what happens when we die. There's no way to know what happens before we're born. There's no way for us to know for definite if we are a soul, if a soul's a real thing, if or if we're just some crazy biological product over millions of years of evolution and random chemicals coming together on a rock hurling through space. I don't know. I really just if I had to guess, I remember reading something when I was younger. I might be messing up the name for it. It was either called the Great Watchmaker or the Great Clockmaker. Uh, Essentially, if I'm not messing it up, which I very well could be, it's the idea or principle theory that something, some entity, some creature, person, whatever, created everything, set this in motion, and we're just part of that kinetic force of continuing through time and space as our world, our universe started, and it is just going now. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't know anything for definite. So I really don't know. I don't really have an answer for that question.
When you were just speaking here, sorry, the image of this movie that we've watched together, Prometheus? Is it Prometheus?
That's the alien one. The
Yeah, like when the alien gets to Earth and he just puts a little bit of chemicals
Yeah,
and
in the very
water.
beginning. Yeah, that's the very beginning of Prometheus. Yeah.
It just came to me. I know that you're not talking exactly about the
No,
same
but
thing.
in a microcosm, if that's how they showed it for life happening on Earth, you could that's the same thing, just in a universal scale instead of planetary scale. Yeah, it's the same thing.
Okay. It just came to my mind, that image, when you were saying this, because I have not heard about what you're referring to right now. You say the.
The great clockmaker or the great watchmaker. I want to say it was called one of those, but it was something I was reading when I was young. So I actually remember the exact time and place where I guess you can say I decided I was agnostic.
Okay.
So I was born, raised Catholic. I'm from New Orleans. I'm from South Louisiana. My dad's Cajun. My mom's Irish. So I'm Catholic, essentially, from
Or you were
birth.
raised like, yeah,
Raised
it's the
Catholic,
same
yeah.
thing that happened to me. I was raised Catholic.
Right.
So I relate to that.
Exactly. So All throughout school, high school, I went to Catholic school. But I remember it was in fifth grade, religion class, Miss Fee. Her last name was Fee, F-E. I always thought that was a unique last name. And she told us that the Old Testament wasn't factual. It wasn't a true story. It was myth, legend, whatever, just told throughout the centuries as parables, as stories to teach good lessons, but it wasn't actually real. And so I remember vividly in that moment accepting that information that that wasn't real. And so I remember having a conversation with myself. I was saying, well, if that's not real, what is real? Why would anything be real? And then I instantly started going from the perspective of I only know what I know and believe what I believe based on where I was born and who my parents are. And if I had been born in another place and time with different parents, I would believe something completely 100% different. So I had this frame of reference at a young age to realize that my ideas are only there based on the people around me. So it's not this um, that there's not this universal truth that's available to everyone. You only know what you're told. So, at least in my opinion, if you only know what you're exposed to, there is no universal knowledge, then how can there be a universal truth?
That is very interesting. How old were you?
Fifth grade.
So that's around like 11,
11,
12.
12, somewhere around there, yeah.
Mm.
I don't know
Yeah.
if I thought about it in that much depth in fifth grade, but I do remember thinking that I don't know if I can believe anything I was told to believe if it can't be proven.
Those are great insights for an 11 or 12-year-old boy.
I also watched a lot of science documentaries with my dad. He was really into watching documentaries about space travel, like actual documentaries, not ancient aliens type science documentaries, but explaining relativity, explaining time, and these different uh, laws of the universe. And I was watching them at an age where I didn't I still don't fully understand it. But yeah, it just kind of like I understood or I had a better idea of the scale of the universe from a really young age. And so for a long time, I had that perspective of if we're this infinitely small thing physically, obviously, in the universe, that like there's that level of importance. Like, why are we important if we're just this tiny little speck on a dot in this infinite space? I don't know. So I always just kind of had that from a religious perspective or from a perspective of understanding life, the universe, all those big questions. My answer was always just, I don't know. And I told myself from a young age that I will never know. So I don't know if I'll ever be able to get out of that. I don't know if that's something I want to get out of in terms of me thinking that I will never know. So is telling myself that it's impossible to know the same thing as telling myself it is possible to know? So then you have that juxtaposition where, because like in my opinion, if you're an atheist, if you call yourself an atheist, that's the same exact thing as calling yourself a religion.
A believer,
Exactly.
right?
You're saying you know something for definite if you call yourself an atheist. You know for definite there is no God. Okay, well, to me, that's the same exact thing as saying you know for definite that there is a God. So I don't know. I've just when it comes to those big questions, I've always since I've been old enough to understand the question, I've been old enough to tell myself I don't know and I will never know.
And this is just a
Mhm.
question. At any moment throughout your life, during all of the various stages of your life, did you ever feel that that belief of not knowing, ever knowing, uh, if it mattered or not, could have been detrimental for you? Like, if you had a different set of beliefs,
Like if I was convinced of some set of principles or guiding theology.
yeah, could have having that set of beliefs helped you move through a difficult time in your life?
Probably. I do think that that could be something that was missing in my life. I don't know, and that's kind of like why I brought up the atheism to the other religions, to being a devout whatever. It's like, am I telling myself, by telling myself I'll never know, am I telling myself I believe something? But if I tell myself I'll never know, automatically I'm eliminating every theology based um laws, principles, guiding lights. I don't know the right word for
Belief
that. Belief system
system.
structure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think most probably, yeah. That is something I could say with certainty, that I do not have, or I have never had anything like that in my life as something to look at to guide me in moments of uncertainty or turmoil or sadness or strife. You know, all the huge, strong emotional swings we go through as humans in our normal human experience.
Yeah. And here, my input on this is that as a person that has believed in many different things throughout my life.
Yeah, you have a lot and I have none, or
Yes.
one. I have Catholicism because I was born into it, but outside of that, I really haven't delved into anything.
Yeah. It is in these moments that we feel more challenged by life, or that we are going through difficult experiences. And this can be any experience, from I am feeling bad about my own self, like
Mm-hmm.
my body physically, to I just lost my kid in an accident.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wide
There's
range, yeah.
so many difficult experiences that we can talk about, that having a belief that goes beyond I don't know
Mm-hmm.
is so necessary. And that's what I end up seeing when people talk to me. When I go to forums of spirituality, many people talk about how spirituality, in whatever it is that they believe, if they believe in the ancestral aliens that you were talking about and the Anunnakis and everything.
I was talking about ancestral aliens.
Yeah, before, when you were talking about documentaries of science, not
Okay, okay,
okay,
okay. The ancient aliens,
which
gotcha.
is valid for those who choose to believe that, and or a religion like Catholicism, or a philosophy,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is. It's so helpful when you're going through these hard moments in your life. So my question for you is, do you feel, or have you felt drawn to any type of explanation of why are we here during moments of duress, or where you were experiencing or going through a bad situation in your life?
Um, so I wouldn't say because I was going through some sort of personal duress or strife or emergency. I wouldn't say because of that, but so I would say though that I have read something, and I used to, a lot more so than now, but I used to do a good amount of reading, just about, not necessarily spiritual things, but just about things I found interesting, philosophical things a lot. And the only thing that ever really connected to me that much in terms of thinking what might be something more, it's a poem, I guess, short story. I don't know how it would be classified. It's called The Egg by Andy Weir, or Andy Weir. I'm sorry, Andy, if I mispronounced your name. But it's kind of incarnation, kind of not really, but also based on my upbringing, Catholicism. The only, or I shouldn't say the only, one of the only things I can say without a doubt that I do live my life by, or I try to live my life by, is to treat those around you how you want to be treated. I try to be nice to everyone I meet, regardless of who they are, what they're doing, what they look like, young, old, whatever. I just try to be nice to people. And so this was the story or poem, if you would mind if I read
I
it.
would love for you to
I
read
came
it,
prepared.
because, yeah.
Okay. So this is how it begins. You were on your way home when you died. It was an accident. Excuse me. It was a car accident. Nothing particularly remarkable, but fatal nonetheless. You left behind a wife and 2 children. It was a painless death. The EMTs tried their best to save you, but to no avail. Your body was so utterly shattered you were better off. Trust me. And that's when you met me. What happened? You asked. Where am I? You died, I said matter-of-factly. No point in mincing words. There was a truck, and it was skidding? Yep, I said. And I died? Yeah. Don't feel bad about it. Everyone dies. You looked around. There was nothingness. Just you and me. What is this place, you asked? Is this the afterlife? More or less, I said. Are you God? You asked. Yep. I replied, I'm God. My kids, my wife, you said? What about them? Will they be all right? That's what I like to see, I said. You just died and your main concern is for your family. It's good stuff right there. And so I read this before ever meeting you or having a kid. And I actually don't think I've read this in a long time now that I'm going back over it again. So it's kind of interesting to get that perspective of it now. All right, let's keep going. You looked at me with fascination. To you, I didn't look like God. I just looked like some man. Or possibly some woman. Just some vague authority figure maybe. More of a grammar school teacher than the Almighty. Don't worry, I said. They'll be fine. Your kids will remember you as perfect in every way. They didn't have time to grow contempt for you. Your wife will cry on the inside, but you will be Your wife will cry on the inside, but will be secretly relieved. To be fair, your marriage was falling apart. If it's any consolation, she'll feel very guilty for feeling relieved. Oh, you said. So what happens now? Do I go to heaven or hell or something? Neither, I said. You'll be reincarnated. Ah, you said. So the Hindus were right. All religions were right in their own way. Walk with me, I said. You followed along as we strode through the void. Where are we going? Nowhere in particular, I said. It's just nice to walk while we talk. So what's the point then? You asked. When I get reborn, I'll just be a blank slate, right? A baby? So all my experiences and everything I did in my life won't matter. No, not so, I said. You have within you all the knowledge and experiences of all your past lives. You just don't remember them right now. I stopped walking and took you by the shoulders. Your soul is more magnificent, beautiful, and gigantic than you can possibly imagine. A human mind can only contain a tiny fraction of what you are. It's like sticking your finger in a glass of water to see if it's hot or cold. You put a tiny part of yourself into the vessel, and when you bring it back out, you've gained all the experiences it had. You've been in a human form for the last 48 years, so you haven't stretched out yet and felt the rest of your immense consciousness. If we hung out here for long enough, you'd start remembering everything. But there's no point to doing that between each life. How many times have I been reincarnated then? Oh, lots. Lots and lots and lots. And in lots of different lives, I said. This time around, you'll be a Chinese peasant girl in 540 AD. I remember laughing at that part. And that's the kind of part that really hooked me, was that part. Because then you start realizing, or I started realizing and thinking about time in a different way.
Yeah.
Because I used to just completely think of time as linear. Even though I'd watch all those things with my dad and understand how, according to some theories, A, B, C, X, Y, Z might be possible. This is the part that really hooked me, was okay. So now time is maybe not the way we're thinking of it. And again, in terms of the universe, time, what do we really understand about time? Anyway, we've all seen Interstellar and know time is funky. All right. All right. Wait, what? You stammered. You're sending me back in time? Well, I guess technically. Time as you know it only exists in your universe. Things are different where I come from. Where you come from, you said. Oh, sure, I explained. I come from somewhere. Somewhere else. And there are others like me. I'll know you want to know what it's like there, but honestly, you wouldn't understand. Oh, you said, a little let down. But wait, if I get reincarnated to other places in time, I could have interacted with myself at some point. Sure, happens all the time. And with both lives only aware of their own lifespan, you don't even know it's happening. So what's the point of all of this? Seriously, I asked. Seriously? You're asking me for the meaning of life? Isn't that a little stereotypical? Well, it's a reasonable question, you persisted. I looked you in the eye. The meaning of life. The reason I made this whole universe. It's for you to mature. You mean mankind? You want us to mature? No, just you. I made this whole universe for you. With each new life, you grow and mature and become a larger and greater intellect. Just me. What about everyone else? There is no one else, I said. In this universe, there's just you and me. You stared blankly at me. But all the people on Earth? All you? Different incarnations of you. Wait, I'm everyone? Now you're getting it, I said with congratulatory slap on the back. I'm every human being who ever lived. Or will ever live, yes. I'm Abraham Lincoln. And you're John Wilkes Booth, too. I'm Hitler, you said, appalled. And you're the millions he killed. I'm Jesus. And you're everyone who followed him. You fell silent. Every time you victimize someone, I said, you were victimizing yourself. Every act of kindness you've done to yourself. Every happy and sad moment ever experienced by any human was, or will be, experienced by you. You thought for a long time. Why? You asked me. Why do all this? Because someday you will become like me. Because that's what you are. You're one of my kind. You're my child. Whoa, you said incredulously. You mean I'm God? No, not yet. You're a fetus. You're still growing. Once you've lived every human life throughout all of time, you will have grown enough to be born. So the whole universe, you said, it's just an egg, I answered. Now it's time for you to move on to your next life. And I sent you on your way. So if there is anything else I could possibly believe, for some reason that resonated with me.
So that's very interesting because in this story of the egg, you're actually touching several different philosophies and religions and views on life and what happens to you after death.
Yeah. So the biggest thing with Catholicism was love your neighbor as you love yourself. That's like the biggest one that stuck out with me from my 11 years as a Catholic, 12 years as a Catholic, however old I was in 5th grade.
Okay. So that could be it. But also we're talking about pantheism, which is talking about how we are all one.
Yeah, that could be part of that. And what's that called again? Pantheism? Okay, I never heard that word before. Okay.
And then I hope I'm pronouncing it well
Yeah,
because
okay.
I'm not a native English speaker.
How's it spelled?
Pantheism.
Yeah, that's how I would say it. Pantheism.
Okay.
The belief in women's panties. Anyway, sorry. Sorry.
It's okay. We all know you, Paul.
Sorry.
And then we're talking about reincarnation as well, which is something that we don't really have as Catholics. When you're a Catholic, and I think this is one of the biggest flaws it has, and that it pushed me away from it, is how we only have one chance to do things right. And that's it.
And if you mess it up, you better do a lot of apologizing.
You go to hell.
You gotta do a lot of apologizing first, and hope you don't go to hell.
Hell, heaven, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you actually go through life and you just the experience of parenting, you get to see how, if that was the case, babies are just doomed from the beginning. And at least from my perspective, as a human or a soul incarnated in this body and living this experience, a father or fatherly figure, at least the way we raise our daughter, is much more lenient or would have more of an understanding for what a child that's starting to experience life will do and the mistakes that it will commit, right? And so for me, this part of reincarnation was something that made more sense. Yeah. Because you make mistakes, you learn from those mistakes, and you come back with a different awareness on how to go about different things.
Yeah.
And it happens on a microcosmos or a microcosmos.
Microcosm, yeah.
Microcosmos or macro?
Macrocosm.
Yeah, I'm just In Spanish, it makes sense, guys.
Microcosmo, macrocosmo.
Microcosmos, macrocosmos. So on a big scale, on a small scale. So if you actually get to see your life, you go through different experiences, and in many cases, this will be explained to detail in different episodes. We just keep going through the same experiences, and then after we move through those, we get to see, did we get the lesson here? Did we learn from this, or do we make the same mistake?
Right.
Right. And in many cases, you go through your life making the same mistakes and
Over
you
and
just
over,
don't
yep.
learn.
Yep.
Right. And then having your life ending and not being able to have another chance of integrating this wisdom, because in the end, this type of knowledge is not just knowledge, it's wisdom. When you live through it and you make it your own through your personal life experiences. For me, reincarnation allows you to do that. So it makes sense for me. And
So
then
you would say you fully believe in reincarnation?
we will get to that. But you have to understand that I've been through many different things.
Oh, I know you have. You've told me.
Right? And so let's say that that is one that resonates with me based on what you just read with the egg. Okay. And then this part, this aspect of how your soul ends up evolving through many different lives. That also makes sense. It's the same thing we were just talking about. You get a chance to evolve and to learn and to grow.
Yeah, I don't see, like, just from a personal perspective, I don't know if I can believe in reincarnation. I just don't know if I can. Like, it's just, to me, it implies too much of a. My brain goes to like administrative work, like who decides what lessons were learned fully. Check. All right. You're gonna go to this guy's body in this day this year. All right, next. Like I don't know. It just feels too.
Yeah.
It feels like there's too much that would have to go on behind the scenes for that to be a real thing. I don't know. I like no matter what the thing is, I always poke holes in it. Like I just have to somehow poke holes in everything.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
As long as you allow yourself to consider like different perspectives and
Oh,
then
yeah.
get to your own conclusion.
No, yeah.
That's
I've
what
considered
matters.
everything. I listen to every new thing I hear. It's just, yeah, I don't know.
You were telling me something, I think it was in one of these breaks, which was like, you don't know to which extent do you use the shield of, I don't know
Yeah.
anything as a wall
Yeah,
to,
to make it so I don't have to believe in anything. I don't know. Yeah, I really don't know.
again, with the answer, I don't know. Okay, good. And so when we're talking about these different things, or now it's my perspective, why do you think that you're here? I've believed in many things. I'm not gonna lie. I've been a spiritual, like,
Spiritual vagabond.
what is that word?
Vagabond, like
A vagabond. Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
traveling
yeah.
from one spot to the next,
Yes.
hopping the trains, hitchhiking down the
Let's
road.
say wonder. So it sounds more poetic.
It's a more, it's a better word.
Yeah. So I've been a spiritual wanderer, and one thing that was clear for me, as I told you, is that Catholicism is not fit for me. And for me, I think it was, and we'll delve deeper into this later. The fact that I experienced a very extreme branch of Catholicism, which is a very orthodox branch of it, which is the Opus Dei.
And so this is when you were
When I
in
was,
Colombia, in
yeah,
South America.
very
Okay.
young.
When you were young.
When I was just in school and I started getting educated into Catholicism, I was in a school that was from this extreme branch, which is Opus Dei.
Okay, see,
Right.
I was my high school. I was a Jesuit. I had the Jesuit priest teaching me. So they're not. I know of Opus Dei, but I don't have anything close to that extreme in terms of my Catholic upbringing.
Yeah. And I think that if I'm not mistaken, Jesuits tend to be very interested in science.
Yeah, they're very
and
education focused.
research
Very
and-
education focused. Yeah.
And Opus Dei is very fear based.
Yeah, very religious doctrine as their focus.
Yes. Very orthodox, very fear based. And so it made
Old
No,
Testament Catholics.
I don't know, like like in that
Fire and
sense,
brimstone Catholics.
but yes,
Okay.
and in terms of if you're doing something wrong, you get to punish yourself,
Yeah, okay.
because suffering will lead you to become
What's the book?
better.
What's the book? Made a movie, Tom Hanks.
Da Vinci Code.
There you go. Yeah. So that's I'm pretty sure the monk in that the albino guy was Opus Dei.
Yes. Now,
And if you saw the movie, they take
no, yes, of course,
freedoms.
but I think that everyone needs to research a little bit more about this. I'm
No, of
just
course.
talking.
I'm just saying that if people haven't heard of it, they might be able to make that connection
Yeah,
through
I'm
that.
just talking about my
Sure.
experience. And in my experience, what I saw was that, and I was also seeing some incoherences based on what they teach you, how it's supposed to be, and how you're supposed to act and go about life. And then the double standard that you could see with people that were part of that organization as well. So for me, I think that double face, like a little bit of a hypocrisy in how they preached and then how they acted about it. It was something that was not closing well for me. And my parents were not members of the Opus Dei, but I do have family members that are from it. So I got to hear and see a little bit more, not a lot. So again, I'm not a member. I have not been a member, and I don't know, the inner
The inner workings.
the inner workings, as you say. Yes. Here, there are like so many different spots that I've been through, but one of the things that I can talk a little bit more about when we're talking about soul evolving through many lives and moving through reincarnation, one of the things at some point of my life that I felt a little drawn to was something that was called the Michael teachings.
Okay, what is that? I've never heard of that at all.
Yeah.
Michael, like the first name Michael? The
Like-
Michael teachings?
Yes.
Okay.
Like Archangel Michael.
Okay.
Michael teachings. And so this is actually something that was channeled by a group of people. I don't remember exactly the decade where it was, but it was based on the belief of reincarnation, but it was referring to us as if we were all part of a big soul. Again, so here we're talking a little bit about pantheism as well. We're all one. We're
Like
all
the
part.
collective consciousness of the collective soul. Okay.
Exactly. Or source. That's a word that you are going to hear a lot.
Source?
Source.
That's who you are. Okay.
In many spiritual circles.
Okay.
And then this collective soul starts dividing into small groups or families of souls that travel together and live different experiences together. And then you have certain traits. Like you can be an artisan, you can be a healer, you can be a priest, you can be a king. So you will have different personality traits, and therefore the challenges tend to be associated to those personality traits as well. And it talks of more things like your soul also has like an equivalent, and they can both be incarnated at the same time, or one of them is not incarnated at the same time, and then you're going to be having more of a trait or not so much of a trait. And it tells you your age in soul age. I remember we used
Soul
to,
age.
yeah.
All right. I'm getting into soul ages now.
Soul ages, exactly. And I remember we used to have conversations about this, and Paul.
About soul ages?
Yeah, and
We
Paul
did? Okay.
used to make fun of me because
Never.
of course, you never make fun of me. Because he talks about how souls, depending on the amount of lives that they've had in.
Oh, how you're the young soul.
Reality.
Yeah, you're the young soul, and I'm the old wise soul. I do. Yep, I remember now. Okay.
So depending on the amount of lives that you lived in this planet, you are either a young soul or you're middle-aged soul, and you're an old soul. And that tends to be very attractive for people who are, as myself, a spiritual wanderer. That that kind of gets to your ego. It's like, I feel like I have certain traits of this specific types of souls, and so I'm an old soul, and I don't get, I don't know, attracted to common things in life, or I rather be by myself, or like they're very specific traits. And so for a time, that was something that was very interesting. And it was a good experience as well. Because after that, I started moving through different things, of course. Another thing that I studied a lot is different branches of Spiritism. So for Spiritism, you have that the father of Spiritism was Allan Kardec, and he wrote several books. One of them is the Book of Spirits. And here, again, through channeling, through using mediums in order to hear what the spirit world has to tell you, he wrote a book of the many different things that spirits wants us to know, right? And so again, you move through different lives. You That's like a concept that
And so was that like the Craft, the movie, the
no
Craft
no 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 no
stage?
no. This is much later.
Okay.
Because, okay, so what Paul is referring to, but this is really not like the belief system that I ever held, is that one of the things that drew me to opening myself to a spiritual reality, there's something beyond
Well, no,
ourselves,
yeah,
there's something.
I'm just joking. I just didn't know if that coincided with your darks,
Well,
your
precisely, that's what I'm
your
talking.
goth
We are
darks
opening,
phase in high
we're,
school.
we're opening the chest, the secret
Your
chest,
cauldron.
my cauldron. And so, yes, one of the first things that drew me into something else that was different from Catholicism and that was considered unorthodox and different was the movie The Craft, and how they would work together with different powers in nature in order to get or achieve things. So basically, magic.
Yeah, because I think in that movie, I think they were at a Catholic school, if I remember, and I think it was a Catholic, like a Catholic prep school. You know, they had their ties. They all had that stereotypical
They
'90s
had
uniform.
uniforms.
Yeah,
They had uniforms. I don't know if that means that it's a Catholic school.
but no, and it's not like you were just joking. It's not like you were a witch. I was just joking to the fact that in our past with talking, you expressed the fact that seeing that movie and at that age rebelling against Catholicism, that was one of the first things that kind of opened you up to
To searching.
non-traditional, the non-big three religions to answer all the world's most important questions.
Yes. So it's also interesting how this, I will explain it later. I keep saying I'll explain it
Well, no,
later,
but that's
but
what I mean though. Like you saw a movie, I read a poem. It's like we just have these little different things that pop up in our lives that for whatever reason connect to us and spur us into moving down a certain direction or thinking a certain way or believing something else might be possible.
yeah, just remember the word clues, because that will come at the end. But for me, that's like a clue. You set a stage and you put little things there that are going to trigger things for you to go, or open up the possibility for you to go deeper through different paths, right? So that's a clue. And so it happened. It opened me to different stuff. The Michael
Different
teachings
ideas, yeah.
came, yeah. The Michael teachings came much, much later. But
Okay,
what
yeah.
I'm
I
talking
had my
about,
time frames all
yeah,
mixed
no,
up. Yeah.
what I'm talking about, I was not going in a
Sure.
chronological order
Gotcha.
here.
My fault.
More like a philosophical based on the egg, right? But as I was talking about spiritism, that is something that I explored when I was in Cuba.
So you lived in Cuba.
I
You have to
lived in
explain that. People
Cuba.
don't know that.
I lived in Cuba.
For how long did you live in Cuba?
For over a year, but I kept coming back.
To Colombia.
No, to Cuba after my
Okay.
time living and working
Okay, so you
there
lived in
as a
Cuba for a
chef.
year, and then you moved back to Colombia, but then you'd go back and forth to Cuba and Colombia for a little while.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because my partner at the time lived there and he was into the religion that they practice, which is a syncretism between Catholicism and
I don't practice Santeria.
Regla de Ocha or Santeria. That's that. And so, of course, being that I am super spiritually curious, I had to be in every step of the way of whatever it is that he was doing because I wanted to absorb and learn as much as I could, experience it. That was so important for me. And it still is with everything. And so that's when I had that contact with Spiritism, because that's one of the practices that they do in Cuba, like spiritual masses, and they just get in touch with their ancestors and they just revere them. Like they put them in a very good place and they have altars for them and they talk to them and they put offerings. So it's a very like traditional way of worshiping. If you actually get to see many different cultures have revered ancestors throughout time. So, as I was telling you, the Book of Spirits, which is the book that was channeled by Allan Kardec, also has similarities to this because it's talking about how our soul comes to Earth throughout different reincarnations. And the whole idea is that we keep evolving over time throughout the experiences that we live, right? Mm-hmm. And so it was also something that was channeled by Chico Xavier. He was a medium from Brazil, and actually based on his book, which is called Nosso, which means our home in Portuguese. They show a little bit what happens after you die, and this channeling was made for a doctor. I don't really remember his name, but he was a doctor, he was a physician, and he dies. And then he goes to this place which is called our home, in which is like that in between land, what you could call heaven for Catholics, or that's the way that he perceived it because he was Catholic, right? And it's this period of time in which you reflect about what happens after you die, kind of like a purgatory sort of thing. That's the way that you want to say it. And you integrate all of those teachings, all of those experiences you had throughout your life, and then you come back to Earth to, of course, you forget everything that happened. You decide, I'm going to incarnate here and I'm going to try to do things right this time, because in this past life, I was not good in and this aspect. So in this lifetime, I will get a chance to do things better, right? Okay. And that's the way that it made sense for me as well. Okay. Always keeping that in mind of how we get different chances to do things right. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I think that here, based on everything, based on what I've experienced, what I've seen, things have been getting more into a concrete idea of what I believe things are now. Could this change? Of course it could change, 100%. Mm-hmm. But I feel that this is the one that makes more sense for me, also based on a philosophy that I tend to follow now, which is the philosophy of conscious bioexistence, which we talked about in the first episode. But what do you say if we play a game?
Sure.
Let's pretend that you are a video game programmer.
Okay.
Let's say you have all the IT knowledge and everything, right?
Okay.
And then you are designing a game. But this game is a game in which you need to decide the background of where the character is going to live, like the world. Like if you were, I don't know, in Game of Thrones, and you would decide that you are in the north.
A desert, the mountains, the beach, the snowy environment, whatever. So like I'm choosing where I start in my game. I'm choosing my
Exactly.
starting spot.
Precisely. Based on when on that scenario, you're going to have some resources available for you. You're going to have certain conditions in terms of, is it the desert? So are you going to be able to access water easily, or are you not?
It's
And
Age of Empires. It's Monopoly. It's life. It's all those games. It's yeah.
yeah, so it's your video game.
Civilization. That's what I'm thinking of the most. Civilization.
Okay. And then you get to design it whichever way you want to.
Okay.
Also, taking into consideration that your scenario is going to determine a lot of things for you, right? And then let's say that you decide whether this person is going to have means, if it's going to be wealthy, or if it's not going to be wealthy. And that could also be influenced by the scenario that you choose to place this person at. Okay? And then you want to see which are the challenges that you want this person to go through in their lives, right? Maybe this is a warrior that is coming to Earth because, or to the Middle Earth or whatever, because he needs to rescue a princess, but he's going to be, I don't know, attacked by whatever it is, right? So you decide which challenges this character needs to overcome throughout the game, right? And in order to see which challenges, or in order to fulfill those challenges and to make the scenario perfect for that, you're going to choose to place that character with a specific city, a specific cultural level, a specific society, and a family.
Okay.
And it's important that all of this reflects the challenges that this person needs to overcome. Okay. So, for example, if you want this person to become empowered about their own worth, their self-worth, you're going to put them in a society that tends to criticize a lot of them. Like that is based on money, is based on image, is based on achievements. And so this person is constantly going to be in an environment in which they're self-aware of themselves, constantly doubting themselves. But also the family members, maybe you can make one of the family members the type of person who criticizes absolutely everyone around them. And so they have in their household that type of criticism. And maybe another family member is the type of family member who self devaluates constantly, right? So you have both of those extremes. So that person understands that there's criticism out there, but there's also the like that pull of feeling less of yourself because you learned it right where you were raised. Okay? So you said all of these different things. And in the game, you start putting clues hidden in the background because for you, what you want this player to do is to be able to overcome all of these challenges. So you make it hard. It has to be a challenge. That's why you set the scenario this way, right? But you want them to overcome things. So clues like, for example, the egg, a book, a song, even a person that has specific characteristics that will show up at a certain stage of the life of the player are right there. You want this person to succeed, but you want it to be relatively challenging for the person to be able to integrate this wisdom on a deep level, right? And then once you have all of these things set, you, as the programmer, as the person that created this world, created this reality for your character, are going to put on the, how do you call it? Virtual reality.
VR headset?
The VR headset, and you're going to go in as the character. Okay. But when you put the VR headset, you're going to completely forget that
the outside.
You program this reality, that you know everything that you're supposed to go through, and you're just going to be that player.
Gotcha.
If you think about it, though,
so it's an amnesia headset. You forget everything before you put it on.
You forget it. You just go in there and you start playing the game.
So that's what conscious bioexistence is. That's what y'all are, that video game. That's how y'all explain your reality and your universe.
I don't know if they use the allegory of the video game. That's something.
But that's your personal
my perspective.
belief.
That's my perspective, and I think that one of the reasons why that philosophy resonated with me is because I have seen this in other ones. Like, for example, Robert Schwartz, who wrote the books Your Soul's Gift and Your Soul's Plan and Your Soul's Love. And I don't know if he's writing any other. I had a chance to be on a seminar and a workshop with him when he went to Colombia. And he talks about these challenges, like what I was telling you, and how you keep moving from life to life. He talks more about past lives and everything. And you're trying to overcome these challenges, and you have also these virtues to move forward. So I don't really know, and this is why I want you to understand that it might not be 100% their vision, because I've been through many things, and everything kind of...
But you're just putting everything you've learned together.
Exactly.
What you think is right, what you think works, what you think makes sense, and you're just making your own little thing.
Yeah, it's not an official way of how that philosophy is. But it was my explanation to...
It resonated with you.
Exactly.
Right.
So in the game, you're going through the game, but if you see the characters that you place there are also you. Right. Are also your creation.
Sure.
Right?
So it's also the egg. It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Yes. It comes...
full circle.
Exactly. And then the thing is that once you understand that you are the programmer of the game, that you have set everything in place, when you're going through one of those challenges, one of those big moments in life, and when you feel like, oh my God, I cannot do this. There's no way for me to be able to overcome this. You also have that knowledge of, well, I know I will be able to overcome this because I have chosen this in this specific way for it to show up in my life, and because there's something bigger that I'm going to get out of this. Right?
Gotcha. So whereas like the Hindu reincarnation, I might be wrong on this, but I think what you are reincarnated into is based on how you lived your previous life in terms of like the ease of life and reward. I think I very well could be mistaken on that. Whereas now you're thinking that it's you deciding the difficulty level and all the other details of your game, as opposed to the details of your game being determined by your actions, like in Hinduism. Hinduism, it's determined by your actions. In yours, it's not, I wouldn't say religion, just your idea on incarnation. Your idea on reincarnation is based on you control, you dictate your life before you're ever in it.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Yes, but okay. I don't leave on the side the perspective of why am I choosing these specific challenges on this lifetime, right? Why do I decide that these have to be the challenges and not other challenges? So these challenges that I'm deciding on this lifetime are very much like related to something that occurred on different lifetimes as well, meaning that the concept of karma and dharma also apply. It's like there needs to be a balance to something. And now this does go a little bit more into what conscious bioexistence shows. We're talking about evolution. We're talking about how, in many cases, a drama on the family tree is going to end up causing a series of reactions throughout generations, and how one thing was experienced from one perspective, you're going to be experiencing it here from the other perspective. Okay. Meaning that what found a lack of balance up here is finding a lack of balance on this side, right, on a different polarity.
Gotcha,
here
yeah.
you were the victimary.
It's a different perspective, yeah.
Yeah, here you're
The yin and the yang,
experiencing it through the victim
the light and the dark,
perspective.
both.
Exactly. And so this is the game that we're playing. And this is why I personally believe it's why we're here. I think that no matter what you believe, if you believe in Anunnakis, if you believe in the Orishas, if you believe in the universe as an egg, whatever it is that you believe in, one of the things that is important is that when we as humans are going through difficult times, we tend to resort to things that are based on this type of beliefs, like the spiritual realm, whatever it is you call it, religion, philosophy, I don't know. But you do find solace in it. And it is one thing that you see through health coaching processes or through spiritual coaching processes, which is that when you believe in something that is bigger than yourself or that makes more sense to you, these difficult moments tend to be more endurable than when you don't have them. Right. Right. And so maybe it's an invitation for people to explore their belief system, see how it is nourishing their lives, or how it could be actually doing the opposite. How could your belief system be hindering your emotional state throughout crisis, right? Sure. And so that's the invitation for today's episode. We were just having this beautiful conversation because I think that it's a conversation that should happen in everyone's life, at least at one point of their lives. You could be 60, you could be 12, you could be around our age.
20.
20-year-old Paul, for example. So thank you for being here with us today in the second episode of the Middle Ground podcast. Thank you, Paul, for being here too.
Thank you, love. Bye.